Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone, and welcome to ReZOO, the Zoo Review Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and I am joined today by my fabulous co-host and fellow passionate zoo lover, the incredible Jodi McFarlane. Say hello, Jodi.
Hello, everyone.
Slightly less enthusiastic than usual, slightly. Presented by Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast, this sister show promises to explore, appreciate, and highlight some of the fantastic conservation work of zoos from around the world, while also offering a perspective on the visitor experience.
On today's show, Jack will be talking about his experience at SEA LIFE Loch Lomond, a small but mighty aquarium set on the banks of an iconic Scottish landmark.
So, let's get started. So, yes, thank you very much for joining me today, Jodi, to discuss my trip to Loch Lomond Sea Life Centre. I think I haven't told you this before, but I'm going to read directly from their guidebook to get us started.
Oh, exciting. We're going for a professional start.
You're going to hate this. Are you swimming comfortably? Then let's begin. So that is so that is the opening line of the guidebook to Sea Life Loch Lomond, which we'll be reviewing today, and I think the perfect start to today's little ReZOO. We're going to be talking about my trip there, and yes, I really enjoyed it. It was, just to sum up in one line, just to get us started, it was a great, nice, small, but really interesting, really great trip that we're running through today. As always, I'll kind of run us through all the different bullet points of all the things that are there, and we'll kind of go through each point and my journey through the aquarium step by step. Jodi's going to be asking me all the questions she has about the aquarium, and then at the end, we will round up with my 2 stars and a wish. The 2 things that I loved, and we can make it 2 starfish and a wish for this one.
Getting in all the fish puns that we can.
Yep. 2 starfish and a wish. That we so the 2 things I loved, and the 1 thing that we thought they could maybe change or update or do a little bit differently. So I guess to get started, just to introduce, Jodi was not here for this trip, so she is going to be asking the questions today. But before we get started, have you got any experience of Sea Life Centres before, Jodi? Any of the other ones that are around the place?
Yeah, I've been to a few. I actually haven't been to Sea Life Loch Lomond, although I don't know why, because it's like the main a sort of official sea life centre in Scotland, but I've never been. I have been to some like down south and things, so yeah, I've been to some, but I'm not as well acquainted with them as perhaps other aquariums. So yes, I'm very interested to hear what you thought of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was the same. I'd been to, I'd never been to Sea Life Loch Lomond before. I had been to the one in London, and I think that was the only other Sea Life Centre I'd been to. And obviously the one in London sets the bar very high because it's the capital of the UK, so they obviously put a lot of effort and resources into that place. So I had high expectations going into this, and it was part of the reason my family aren't always animal people, because I've dragged them around so many places, kicking and screaming, whether they wanted to be, if it was pouring rain or whatever. I dragged them around, so they're not always the easiest to convince to come to these places with me. But for this one, I used the kind of London Aquarium was so high quality, so nice, so many resources had clearly been pushed into it. This is going to be a great experience, and I think overall, it didn't let me down on that, really. It was really nice, and yeah, not to give too much away, I really enjoyed my time at Loch Lomond.
Good. It's going to be a positive chat today then.
Yes, I think so. So yeah, I guess I can let you take over. What is the first thing you want to know about Jodi?
Well,
What is the
my
first thing?
first question, Jack, would have to be, were you indeed swimming comfortably when you began your journey?
I was swimming comfortably when I began my journey.
Good,
It was very
excellent.
nice.
Yeah, so I suppose first thing then would be first impressions. So, because we like to talk about the whole visitor experience. Last time when we were reviewing Chester Zoo, we had a whole rave about the car park before we even got onto the zoo itself. So, what was your first impression of the whole site as you were arriving?
Yes, so it's kind of a strange one because it's placed right on the banks of Loch Lomond, which is really nice, beautiful place. I should say bonny place. It's amazing. I had never been and seen Loch Lomond before. I'm not a true Scot, but I am now. I've been now, and it's placed in this kind of beautiful, amazing place. And walking up to this strange building on the shore is fantastic. The only thing I would say is it's placed in a weird place. Like you walk up and there's a kind of shopping center right there, and
Oh.
that makes sense because it'll draw people in, but it's kind of a shopping center slightly removed from what it feels like the town, so it's clearly designed to be like a little touristy spot. There's a crazy golf, so it was kind of a weird first impression, me trying to understand what exactly layout the council or whoever had planned these buildings were going for, because it was a very
Hmm.
strange mix. um but
To
from
be
the
fair,
outside.
though, just to cut in
Mhm.
before you move on from that point, thinking now about other aquariums that I've visited, quite often they're in sort of odd spots or maybe a little bit hard to find and they're sort of tucked away. And, maybe from the outside, it doesn't even necessarily always look like an aquarium. So they are kind of odd buildings on the outside. And I suppose the magic lies within.
That is very fair. That is very, very fair. And it is, yeah. Once you get in there, it is lovely. And like the aquarium from the outside looks strange. I thought it must have been a repurposed building, but I think it was actually
Mm,
custom built to be an aquarium. And the architecture is bizarre. But once you get in there, it kind of makes sense a little bit. I think my one comment about the design from the outside was I think this building was designed to look nice on the outside without necessarily thought on how it would function when you got inside it, because it's this big round space which is good and it's nice, and it's a big empty kind of hall in in parts. It's got like this huge roof and all sorts of stuff, and it looks nice from the outside, but functionally it doesn't necessarily, I would say, make the best use of space inside, and like the pathways are all a little bit weird, and I don't know, we'll get into it as we get in, but yeah, that's my
mm.
first impression. Looked nice, strange spot. Yeah, that was my
Okay,
first kind of
cool.
impression.
So then you got past that, you got in the building. What was the first bit of the experience like with reception and first impressions inside and all that?
Mhm. So we had to book tickets in advance, and what I would advise is screenshotting your tickets or trying to, I don't know, have them printed out or something before you get there, because trying to get them up on my phone in a big concrete box didn't
Hmm.
work very well. So just be aware. But when we got there, the woman at reception was so nice. She did say like, "Oh, it is. You can sometimes struggle to get signal in here, so there's no rush, whatever." And we did go on a Monday, so it was nice and quiet, and we had that chance to chat with her, and it was very nice. And yeah, she gave us the guidebook, no problem. There was nice little flyers, and there really wasn't much to be explained. There was no map or anything to be handed out, which I thought was a bit odd, and again will come up a little bit throughout. But yeah, overall, it was a nice first impression. The woman who worked, she seemed to be working the gift shop and reception by herself, so she can't have had an easy job. And she was still being lovely and cheerful and friendly. So really, really nice. Really, really friendly. 10 out of 10 reception gift shopping skills from her. Really, really
Good.
good. Mhm.
In terms of the map, then, because that's something that we used to come up against at Deep Sea quite often because we didn't have a sort of little paper map to hand out necessarily. We
Mhm.
did have one within the guidebook if people wanted to buy that, and there were sort of big poster maps on the wall. And people
Mhm.
used to be a bit confused by that when they first came in, but then it becomes apparent as you go around that you don't necessarily need a map. Did you think that was the same for Loch Lomond, or would you have benefited from a map?
Okay, so there's no map in the guidebook, which I thought was interesting. The guidebook is very high quality, and I like it, and it's got lots of good pictures, lots of good facts, lots of good information about what they do as a with the Sea Life Trust and all sorts of things. Really nice, but no map. There's no maps anywhere really as you go around. She did explain of like when we went in that there's a cinema on one floor, there's a viewing point on another floor, all this sort of stuff, but to get around the aquarium based like live exhibits there was no map, and it is small but it isn't always clear. I think there's a couple of things that are tucked away that it would be really easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. So
Hmm.
just be aware of that, because it was kind of at the point where you had to exit, you have to go through this amazing tropical tunnel, but it's so tucked away that if you didn't know it was there, you just you'd be walking around like, where is the exit, because it's kind of in between this big round tank and the like rock pool area where you could go up and like see the animals up close with the person standing there.
Hmm.
um but there's no, it's not like so it's kind of tucked in between these two things, and you have to make it's an odd layout. So yeah, I think it would have benefited more so than other aquariums from having a map, because I almost think Deep Sea World, where we worked, yes, it is a similar size, but it is kind of one big open kind of not cavernous space but big space where you can kind of see everywhere where you need to go at once, and
Mm.
there is kind of routes to go around, and I think since COVID they have implemented a one way which kind of helps you get everyone around. But isn't like that. It's kind of a like lots of little tunnely bits which can be a bit it would be easy to miss a section basically if you
Mm.
weren't paying attention.
Yeah, I know. And the
Mm.
thing with that is that because aquariums tend to be smaller, there is an argument that you just wouldn't need a map because you will get round without one. And I think as
Mm.
well, aquariums, they tend to sort of change the layout of things or change where certain species are a lot more than zoos will, because obviously it's easier for aquariums to do so.
Mm.
So maybe there's the argument that their map would change so often that it's not worth printing one out. But knowing the public as we do, people
Mm.
just love a map. They just want a map. They will always want one, even if it's like one room worth of stuff. They want to know what everything is and where it is. They like a map. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I see what you're saying, that it would be helpful just with simple things like how to get out. That might
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, and like there was just it was maybe just like I would put it down to lack of direction or lack of whatever, but it wasn't the most intuitive. And I imagine on a busy day, we obviously were there where it was very quiet, so there wasn't
Mhm.
necessarily a flow of traffic. But
Yeah.
on a busy day, maybe it would be more obvious because you'd see where people were going. But for us, when it was quiet, it wasn't the most intuitive necessarily. There were staff around who kind of were nipping between tanks and feeding things that we could have asked.
Mhm.
So but at the end of the day, it is nice to have a map in case there isn't anyone around at the time you need to find. So yeah,
Yeah.
that would be my thoughts on the map situation going
Okay.
in. Mhm.
Okay. So map issues aside, you found your way in. You find yourself in the first part of the aquarium. What was your first impression in that first area? Tell me all about it.
So you walk in and there's this wall, this waterfall, and it's strange because it's running down glass, and you think, well, what is that? And then all of a sudden you see through the water trickling down the glass, this little otter running around, which
Oh.
was an excellent first impression. You walk through, they're kind of all over the place. There's three of them running backwards and forwards, grabbing food, playing with each other, jumping in and out of the water. We didn't actually see that till I made the family go round twice. Obviously, the second time round they were all kind of in and out of the water, which was very very cool. Very, very nice. So that was kind of the first impression. And I think opening with otters is always a strong message. I think opening with
Mhm.
cute is always a good thing to do,
Yeah, I was
especially in a
just going
place
to
where,
say that because
yeah.
obviously at the zoo you have that. You go in and the first thing you're hit with is meerkats. So I think when you pick a
Mhm.
family favourite as the very first thing that people see when they go in, it hooks people right away.
Especially when they're munching on. So I think we just timed it perfectly that they were munching on something. They were kind of playing around. It was good. They might be chill more times, but they didn't seem that way. I think the one there's a fact in the guidebook I'm going to reference back to, which I love. It's a full page worth of guidebook, and this is an A4 sized guidebook, which is Cub loves to play with balls, dig and pinch things out of the staff's pockets. So I can't imagine they're calm very often. I'm going to show Jody the picture. You won't be able to see this, listeners, but very, very cute. Very,
Oh,
very cute. Um, but yeah, so first impressions were very, very strong.
yes.
With it's Asian short clawed otters that they have, and they're very, very sweet.
Hmm.
A family favorite, really good start, really interesting space. The cool thing was that because the water ran down the glass and into the pool, so the glass kind of extended down into the pool, so you all had this kind of underwater otter viewing as well. So when they were
Ah, okay.
jumping in and out and kind of swimming around, you could see like the trails of bubbles coming off them. I tried very hard
Mm.
to get a photo. I did not do it very successfully, but it was really really cool and really really interesting, and something you don't see, like you always see penguins underwater viewing, or you see
Mm.
kind of other animals, that crocodiles or frogs or whatever, you can kind of see sometimes underwater viewing, but you don't get that often with otters. So I thought it was something unique that I hadn't seen before. Really nice, really cool. Really, really liked it. And yeah, a really good strong first impression, I think.
Lovely.
Yeah. Um,
So what did
and
you
yeah,
move on to from there?
so yeah, next to that, kind of tucked to the sides. On one side, you had dogfish and kind of some, kind of sea bass on one side, I think it was, and dogfish on the other. And in one of the dogfish tanks was an albino dogfish, which
Oh.
was really strange because these animals are often, or for people who don't know what it is, it's kind of a long, thin brown shark. Covered in spots, dark brown spots, and they kind of are quite hard to spot sometimes. But you walk in, and this
Mm.
thing was bright white and pink, and it was really cool. It was really something quite unusual. Maybe wouldn't work very well for camouflage out in the wild, but for an aquarium, works pretty well. Very impressive.
Mm.
And then also there was a wall of sea bass next to them. I've written on our notes, I don't need to see another sea bass in my entire life.
I did see that in
That
the
is,
notes. I appreciated that because I share that sentiment.
that is purely based on the opinion that I have worked in an aquarium. I have seen thousands and thousands of sea bass, and it's not that they're not important, and it's not that they're not interesting. It's just that I've seen them so many times. 4 years
Hmm.
of my life were spent telling people about sea bass, so it was really I don't. They're not something that I need to appreciate, but they are quite big, impressive, cool fish. When you weren't exposed to them for 4 years, they are quite cool. So yeah, there was the sea bass wall.
Yeah, and it's good that obviously it's native species, so it's then highlighting that as well. But
Yes.
yes, I share that view about the sea bass. So moving swiftly on from them, what was the next highlight?
Yeah, so I feel like we're really whizzing through, but that was kind of also the pace we were going at. We stopped for a long time at the otters, but then also we were kind of moving at a pace, and I don't know whether it was just kind of us kind of getting through and doing things, but yeah, you kind of are quite excited to see more, which is kind of what this discussion is like almost because we're going through quite quickly. And the next thing we came to was the locks. So obviously based on the bonny bonny banks of Loch Lomond, as the song so famously says. I would sing, but I don't want to get sued, and I don't know who owns that, so we'll just keep it very simple. um, so yes, they had a loch area, which was really nice because it had a lot of freshwater species, which you could see theoretically in the loch, which were really really nice. I think it's good to highlight, and I think what I love, like with the Highland Wildlife Park, all these places that highlight local species as well as
Hmm.
the big impressive megafauna, I think is really really important. Um,
Hmm.
Especially when Loch Lomond is a very touristy place and you're at a tourist attraction, it encourages, I think, people to take care of that beautiful national park that you're in and you're exploring because you see some of the different things that are around and about below the surface. Because
Hmm.
obviously you can see
Absolutely.
birds and whatever it is that are flying around the loch, but not a lot of people will go swimming or scuba diving in Loch Lomond. Certainly wouldn't recommend it at this time of year because it'll be freezing. So it's nice to highlight these different species. And yeah, it was really, really cool. You kind of, they have these tanks that I almost miss them because there's tanks kind of at a lower level for kids to obviously see, but then above them as well they have tanks kind of along the top of this section. Like there's a lot to look at and a lot of different species in there, and
Hmm.
yeah, really nice to highlight Scottish local species. I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and what you said there about because obviously a lot of Scottish aquariums will highlight native species that you have all around
mhm,
Scotland, but I think it's good when they make the most of their local area as well, because there can be a difference there between, native species and local species. If you're located somewhere iconic like Loch Lomond, acknowledge that and sort of reference it and really make the most of that and make a point about it, which it sounds like they did, so that's good.
mhm,
And I also like what you said there about how they had tanks on different levels because that is something I think that's really important in an aquarium because if you've got kids, they need to be low
mhm,
down, otherwise they can't see anything, and parents are constantly having to lift them up and kind of lean them over the edge of tanks, which, as we know,
mhm.
is not good.
Nope.
Can lead to all manner of problems. But then at the same time, adults don't want to have to be kneeling down all the time. So I think that's good that they've taken into the account the different levels and things.
It was really really nice, and yeah, and it was a nice kind of something that again highlighted all the different levels. Was the next thing you came to, you kind of came to this big curved tank. Now it wasn't a full tunnel, it didn't go full tunnel, but it was kind of up and curved, so you kind of had this huge wall of rays, and I think, is that where the bream were? I think there was sea bream and another species like bass. I although prefer bream. I don't know if it's a debate that's out there, but if there is big bream fans out there, I'm team bream for that. Um, there's so it was a nice big curved tank that obviously younger people could see because it was right there. There was steps up to it. There was also a curve over, so parents, older people could stand back and see, and there was, I think, quite good signage behind it as well. That was something to highlight. Actually, talking about signage, they had electronic signs at a lot of things, which were kind of
Okay.
going through a slideshow, which I think is a very clever idea because as things change and get updated, you don't then have out of date signs that tell you about a species that the aquarium or the zoo or whatever doesn't have anymore. So it
Hmm.
was quite nice. I think I would have liked maybe a little more information on the slides on some of them, but generally they were a good and I think can be updated quite quickly if needs be, and they kind of manually scroll through. So
Hmm.
yeah, just a side note on signs there, but oh yeah, that was
No,
another
that's good
impressive
because
nice.
we, as we've discussed before, we love signs.
I love
Love
a
it when
sign.
there's signs and they're, informative and they're relevant. And I think it's good having the sort of digital aspect. It makes it a little bit more interactive as well. So I feel like
Yeah.
going forward, that's the way to go for zoos and aquariums, because then, as you say, it takes away the problem of if things are changing location often, then you're not
hmm
stuck with old signage that you've just paid a fortune for that now isn't relevant to the tank that it's next to. So something like
hmm
digital signage that can be changed often, I think, is a good move going forward.
And I think what's quite clever about the way that the aquarium is themed overall, while we're talking about signs, is that the signs can obviously change easily with the digital things, but also the theming. It was it's like they picked general aquarium was the theme. There was
Mm-hmm.
either concrete kind of rockwork type features or wooden crate work features, which again, if things change over time, they don't need to update that because it's not like here's a really specific reference to the Caribbean or to the
Yeah.
Maldives
Mm-hmm.
or wherever it is. It's a kind of generalized theme which kind of works quite well. And then within the tanks, they can then theme it up specifically for whatever species are in there. But the outside theming, kind of where the signs were, was kind of this general rock work, crate work type theme, which worked
Mm.
quite well, I think, for everything that was going on. So yeah, I'm just going to keep talking. Sorry, I know
Go
you're
for it.
here, Jody, but you
You're
weren't there.
just you're just taking us on the journey. I'm just appreciating it. I'll throw
Yeah,
in
so
questions as they come up.
so the next point on the journey was the seahorses and pipefish, and
Oh, love them.
loved that.
Love them. Big favourite of
Loved
mine.
hmm Seahorses, always fantastic, always lovely, always charismatic. Pipefish, related to seahorses, so a nice
Hmm.
equivalent to have there that is perhaps less popular, and really, really cool. And they had a nice film playing about in this area about turtle conservation because we were about to come onto a sea turtle, which was quite cool. But
Ah, okay. I was
so it
about to
was
say,
like a
why
nice
is
kind
there
of
turtle conservation going on
yeah.
next to the seahorses?
So but like they had the conservation highlight in this area. They also had information about the seahorses, about everything that was kind of that their conservation work that they do. I think there was a sign up at one point that said they bred 994 seahorses at some point. So that
Wow.
impressive. That's a lot of seahorses. Although
Mm.
we've seen seahorses give birth, and that's maybe like one or
Well,
two
true.
goes because there are hundreds of those things come out at
Yeah.
once. But yeah, so I don't envy the person who had to count those 994. I'd probably
No.
I don't think I'd have the willpower to do that. So yeah, we had that kind of experience, which was good. Seahorses, yes, always a favorite. I think the family loved the seahorses.
Mm.
They were a bit less taken by the pipefish because I think I
Oh,
mean,
I love pipefish. They are an underappreciated fave, but I absolutely love pipefish. I
mhm,
just think they're so cool and so cute, and obviously there's like that sort of link there to the seahorses, and the seahorses were always my fave. So do you
mhm,
know where I think this came from? It's because when we were at deep sea, I feel like every day that I was ever there, it was me that did the seahorse feed, and
mhm,
so I just ended up like, I don't know, in my mind, like me and the seahorses are one. Like they're just
mhm.
my thing. If I was any marine creature, I would probably be a seahorse. Um, Perhaps not the best because they don't tend to have the best survival rates and things. But I just feel like in my heart, I'm there for the seahorses. So the pipefish, by extension, they're like maybe the cousins. So yeah, no, I'm repping for the pipefish. What a shame that the fam didn't like them.
Yes, tell us at home. Are you team hashtag Team Bream or hashtag Team Pipefish? Can you?
This is what
Uh,
happens when you work in aquariums. You end up with very strong, passionate opinions about really random things that normal people would be like, please get a life. But if you're listening to our podcast, then I feel like you're our kind of people. So you'll understand the passion about random things. And one of mine is pipefish. So there we go.
yes,
Anyway,
I'm.
enough of that rant. Moving
Yep.
moving swiftly on.
Moving swiftly on into the Bay of Rays, which also featured turtle. So yes, we moved through into the Bay of Rays, which is a big round tank, which seemed to have a bit of a current going. There was a lot of fish swimming very quickly, round and round. It had Scotland's. I want to say Scotland's. It says on the guidebook somewhere. I'm not going to keep. It's either Scotland or the UK's only cow nose rays. Um, and they were quite bizarre. They look like a regular stingray, but if it had just swam into some glass and kind of smushed itself, that's kind of the vibe they're giving off. But it was huge, the ray, and it was really quite impressive. And in there with the ray was a turtle, which has I I think I love April, the sea turtle. I felt very bad for her when I heard her story, but I like what they're doing at the aquarium. Be prepared for your conservation message of the day because I may go on a ramble about why we need to stop getting dumping plastics in our oceans because poor April was tangled up in plastics and netting. She had lost one of her flippers, so she couldn't swim properly.
Hmm.
She because of all the plastic and being tangled up and all these things, she got a lung infection, which has affected her buoyancy, so she couldn't sink. So she was rescued in the Maldives, had a lot of work done, I think, to her, and then she was shipped across to Loch Lomond, where she now lives very happily. And I think, yes, normally I think sometimes having sea turtles in aquariums, I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't know if you can breed sea turtles in captivity, so they have to come from somewhere. And so there's always this question when you go to somewhere that has a sea turtle, where has this come from?
Hmm.
But this seems like a really just reason to have one in the conservation messaging, and the fact that if April was left out in the wild with missing a flipper, and all of the problems that she would have, she would be easy pickings for predators, and also she wouldn't. The lung issue has meant that she's not buoyant properly, so she
Hmm.
wouldn't be able to sink to get food, so she would
See, this is
be
it,
gone.
and this is where I think, often you get the argument that people don't like zoos and aquariums for whatever reason, but like examples like that are a perfect example of why they can be so valuable. And like earlier, you were mentioning the albino dogfish, was it? Um,
Hmm.
and it made me think of the penguin that we have at Edinburgh Zoo, who's, I can never remember how you say this. Is it leucistic? Leucistic or leucistic? I'm not too sure. But basically, he's like grey. It's called snowflake, like grey feathers rather than black. And one of the problems there is that obviously, as you said about the dogfish, camouflage out in the wild then wouldn't be possible. And so, the
Hmm.
animal would be easy pickings. So when you've got animals who have got injuries or these conditions that mean that out in the wild they just wouldn't survive, I guess survival of the fittest, they wouldn't, for whatever reason. If they've got places like zoos and aquariums where they can come, they can then live a long and full life that they just wouldn't get naturally out in the wild. And so that's a really good
Hmm.
example, I think, to highlight why they can play a really important part in giving a certain animal a lifeline that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Exactly, and it helps to highlight, I suppose, the story that we need to be protecting these animals out in the wild as well, because not only do they kind of, yeah, they end up in situations where they have all these issues, and those issues are caused by us. We can't avoid that fact. The plastic wasn't there, put there by sharks to trick the turtle into do it. It was put there by us.
Yeah.
So, and especially when it comes to oceans, it's something that I think both of us spent a long time talking to people about at Deep Sea World where we worked. It just is so frustrating that all of these issues are caused by us, and there's still people who go out there and litter and they throw things away and they don't recycle and they do these things. So if you're listening to the podcast, please, for April and all of April's family and all of these other things, just recycle. Please, 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 please. It's not hard. Just, I don't know, use less plastic. Get a kind of multi-use bottle that you can take everywhere that you go. Just don't be, yeah, I'm going to stop now because I can feel myself getting too passionate about this. But
I just
yeah,
love that, like, the passion point there was think of April, do it for
think of
April.
April. It's very important because it really annoys me. And having been on a beach watching baby turtles be born, and I know that's a very privileged position to have been in, and not everyone will have seen this. And I just formed this extra connection, and I just love them so much, and I just want people to be nice to the turtles and
But
to
in there,
everything else
there's
that lives out
another
there.
important role of zoos and aquariums because people, unfortunately, most of the time need to feel that they have a personal connection with something to be
Hmm.
bothered about the cause. So when people see an animal like April and then they hear her story and they fall in love with her, then it makes it more personal because it's not
Hmm.
just, oh, use less plastic to save the sea turtles. And people are like, oh, what have sea turtles got to do with me? But once they've gone out and seen April and made that connection, then
Hmm.
it makes it more personal and they can think, oh, me not throwing away this plastic bottle or whatever is directly helping this lovely animal. So
Hmm.
it gives people that little personal touch that they need sometimes to get a bit more involved.
And they can get it through documentaries, I suppose, as well.
Mm,
But if you're lucky enough to be in a position where you can afford a ticket to go and see it and form this extra connection,
mm-hmm.
go and see April and support the sea life kind of conservation and donate to charities and do these things. Because yeah, forming that connection really, really helps. I don't know why. I'm now thinking about. I don't know if anyone's been watching the Green Planet documentary at home. I've fallen in love with mothballs, Jodie. I don't know why, but forming a connection is very important, and it's gotten to the point. I have a mothball, and I bought it before, but now I've heard their story, and I now will talk about this mothball like it's my child. So forming a connection is an important thing, and I've just revealed myself to be a crazy person. We're going slightly off on a tangent, but yeah, very important tangent at the same time. So veering back onto course, I think we should move on. Um, and yeah, so Bay of Rays, really, really cool. Conservation message, excellent. Um, and I then came on. There was other tanks in this area, and there was another little area tucked off behind the Bay of Rays, which was had clownfish, it had pufferfish, but the star was the mantis shrimp. And
Oh,
have you seen my pictures of a mantis shrimp? Like, have you seen that? It was the one. It was the one with the weird eyes, and it was all blue and pink and red and stuff. It was
I
very
don't think I've seen
rainbowy,
these
very
yet.
cool. I'll send them across to you. Mantis shrimp.
Please do.
I was like, I think I'm on hallucinogenics. That's the kind of, because it was a very the glass was curved, so this thing looked huge, and it was like it was peering into my soul. And it was kind of bent. You had to bend down to see it. It was very bizarre, but it was fantastic and wonderful. And again, a charismatic thing that I'd never seen anywhere else, and I loved it. I've since done some research. Apparently, they pack one hell of a punch. They can really hurt
Mm,
even a human if they go for you. So really, really bizarre things. Their eyesight is really crazy and strange. Really interesting. Big highlight for me because I'd never seen it before. Star of this area. Sorry, Nemo. Sorry, all of the clownfish. You were sat there. My family were stuck at you because they were being very basic and going for the
basic.
clownfish. I was going right for the mantis shrimp, and it was very, very cool. I really enjoyed seeing that, and kind of a bit strange, something
Mm,
that you don't see everywhere. So I really, really like that
love
as well.
that.
Really, really cool. Yeah. And I suppose to give to be fair to Nemo and his friends, there were hundreds of clownfish. It was very cool to see. And
Mm,
again, another conservation message about the pet trade. Just because you see Finding Nemo does not make it okay to go and buy clownfish. Um,
mm-hmm.
I think things like regal tangs and clownfish, after Finding Nemo and Finding Dory came out, they obviously became very popular. And a lot of the times, if you're buying these from non-reputable sellers, these animals do have links directly to the wild where they've just been taken, and not bred in a sustainable way. Not so. Just be careful if you're going to buy clownfish where you're going to get them from. So yeah, that's a little conservation message that comes along with them. But
Mm-hmm.
as I say, star of the area, mantis shrimp for me personally.
I do have one question before we move on from this
Mhm.
area. Not sure if you'll know the answer, but do you happen to know what kind of pufferfish were in with them?
So they weren't in with them. They were in a different tank across the bit, the
Mm,
little area. And I can't remember off the top of my head what type of pufferfish it was. I don't think they were the ones with spines. They weren't a type with spine, but I can't off the top of my head remember. I'm very, very sorry, listeners and Jody.
disappointing.
Why do you ask?
I just love pufferfish. They're just another one that I just always love. So I'm just always interested to, because I think, we've, especially from working at deep sea, and then like we've seen so many from teeny tiny ones to like huge
Hmm.
ones. So I just always think they're really cool, and they're just another one of those ones that I'm just kind of fascinated with. So yeah,
Fair.
just a point of interest.
Very
If
fair.
anyone listening knows because they've been to Loch Lomond, or maybe you work there, please comment and let us know what kind of pufferfish you have, because you'd make this gal very happy.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, excellent. Thank you very much for sharing your love there. I don't know really where I'm gonna take that. Just yeah, puffer fish lovers out there, pipe fish lovers out there. Jody, Jody's your gal. Um, um, so yes, moving on from there. This is when we went for a coffee. And something I think aquariums sometimes like to position themselves in the best places in the world to have coffee, because the coffee shop here, well, to start, the coffee shop at St Andrew's Aquarium, for example, you look over the West Sands of St Andrews, an iconic,
Mm,
beautiful Scottish landmark. Deep Sea World's Cafe, you look up at the Forth Bridges, the Forth
hmm
Rail Bridge, iconic landmark. And here you look up Loch Lomond. This expanse that goes on forever. On a foggy day, I don't imagine you'd have a very good view, but for the day we went, you could see forever and ever and ever and ever. And the cafe itself was no different from any other standard zoo or aquarium cafe. It was
Mm.
the standard prepackaged sandwiches, coffee, that kind of stuff. But the view made it amazing, and I loved it. And we sat and just had a quick juice, coffee, and then yeah, it was just fantastic. It was fantastic, fantastic. Loved it.
It's a good point
Um,
though, because I guess if you think about it, most aquariums don't really have windows. Or they kind of have that
mhm,
underground feel. In the case of deep sea, it sort of feels like it literally is underground because it's underneath the car park.
mhm,
So yeah, like it makes sense that if you're like on the next to a beautiful landmark, you want to make the most of that, and the only opportunity I guess they have to do that is in the cafe because it's probably the only
mhm.
place that has windows. So it makes
Yeah,
sense
well,
why a lot of them do that. I hadn't thought of that before, but yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
yeah, so it's strange. The layout of the aquarium, and to kind of come back to circle back from the beginning. So it's this big sphere. And so on the ground level you have all the live exhibits. In the middle level you have this cinema, which was playing Octonauts, which is a children's TV show. So I was like, nah, not for me. Which is good for the kids, I suppose, not for me. And then on the top level, you have these kind of this cafe, and then above that, there's a viewing point as well. So yeah, they really make the most of the design to get the best view from the cafe, and then all the way down, they kind of yeah. And there
Hmm.
was windows in the otter area, so they were getting natural light in, which was nice. But yeah, it was kind of a an odd yeah, I can't remember where I was going. I lost my train of thought there. It was it was a really nice view. Basically, what I'm trying to say is clever design, nice
Hmm.
view of Loch Lomond. Felt very there should have been bagpipes kind of view. Really nice, really really beautiful, beautiful view. But yeah, we didn't buy much from the cafe, so I don't feel like I can assess that fully.
Hmm.
But it was a nice view at least.
Yes.
Um, yeah. Um, and yeah, that kind of brings us almost to the end because after the cafe, this is when we got confused slightly because I had known before we went that there was a tropical tunnel, but we hadn't seen it. So we were kind of a bit
Hmm.
confused as to where it could be. So we went downstairs and it was, yeah, it was kind of tucked away behind the Bay of Rays and in between it and the kind of interactive area, which was fine. But it meant that I had no idea where it was so tucked away that we hadn't noticed it the first time, and it
Hmm.
was just a bit strange. So, but having said that, once we did find it, fantastic. I would say one of the highlights of the aquarium. I love a tropical tunnel because I think tropical fish and tropical sharks and tropical things are quite colorful and bright, and so being surrounded by them in this nice kind of underwater space was fantastic. They had shark species like black-tipped reef sharks. They had all sorts of different rays. The kind of leopard, I can't remember the exact name, but it was a leopard ray that had kind of these beautiful spots. They had hammerhead type sharks, really fantastic, really really cool tropical tunnel. Great way to end it, and I'm so glad we found it because we could have spent an hour easily. Well, I'm a fish boy, so I could have stood there for hours, and maybe my family couldn't have. Maybe they could have managed 10, 15 minutes, but I could have stood there for hours looking and appreciating just how fantastic this area was. I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Really great. Made my sister come back round and get photos of me in it. Just great. Loved it. 10 out of 10. I don't really know. I've not really said much about it because, but just know it's
Just that you
fantastic.
loved it.
Yeah, I just really, really loved it. It was yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, loved it.
And so then, did the tunnel then take you to the exit?
Yes, so right into the gift shop. That was the
Okay.
last thing, and it was a really good last impression because you leave with quite large, interesting, charismatic, popular species. So people who maybe had been waiting for a big shark or whatever it was, they see then the black tip reef shark or they see the hammerhead type shit. Like they see these things that they've kind of been waiting for, and it's been building up to this moment of shark.
Hmm.
Which I mean, sharks of course are slated by some people, loved by others. And so I think leaving on them is a really, but I think overall people like to see them. So it's a good thing
Hmm.
to leave on. Another conservation message from a former aquarium worker: don't eat shark fin soup, please. We'll not go into it in this episode. We're going to cover more aquariums. We've already done a lot of conservation messages, so let's focus on the plastics and the saving April for now. We'll circle back to sharks on our next aquarium episode because I have thoughts on
Hmm.
the people's perception of sharks. But yes, really good to end on because they are fantastic, wonderful, amazing creatures.
Lovely. Well, before I come to my last thing, which is to ask about your two stars and a wish, do you have any
Mhm.
final things that you'd like to mention?
Bonus stuff as
Yeah,
listed on
bonus.
my notes. Bonus stuff. There's quite a
Mm-hmm.
few bonus stuff. So
Oh,
I've
okay.
kind of talked about the guidebook throughout. Would recommend. Nice purchase. Good photos. Doesn't have a map, so that's maybe a point deducted. Would be nice. Also, slightly more specific information about the tanks you're going to see because it has a lot of good information about the sea life kind of organization and trust thing. Like because they own a lot of aquariums, so they have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
general stuff. But I feel like I could take this guidebook to London Aquarium, or I could take it to any other, and it would still be fine. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of it's maybe not specific enough, but still very nice. Um, yeah, I'd say overall second point that I've written down for bonus stuff, um, is the aquarium is small. We were around it in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't think that's a bad time to spend in an aquarium because they are usually a bit smaller.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I wouldn't say it's bad, but it is aquariums do tend to have a more expensive ticket price. So make that economic decision in your mind before you commit, because I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people go in to an aquarium spending 15, 16, whatever the price is, pounds, and they then expect it to be as long an experience as a zoo, like a full day.
Mm-hmm.
And aquariums, no matter where you go, are not that. They are never ever a
Yeah.
full day ticket.
No.
But so it was nice to have, like, I didn't mind the price, but just be aware for the price it is small, I would say. I don't know. Do you have it like we worked in an aquarium? I don't know if you have any thoughts on
Yeah, no,
price
I
to
mean you pretty
time
much
ratio.
yeah, you pretty much summed it up there. Like I think people need to have realistic expectations about aquariums because often they are not that much cheaper than zoos, but a zoo you will spend the whole day in and aquariums generally you
Mhm.
won't. You know, like when we worked at Deep Sea there was a lot of sort of talks and feeds and events on throughout the day to try and, give people things to do
Mhm.
to spend more time there, but even with those things, you're generally not going to be there all day. Even huge aquariums, other places in the world, some of the biggest ones in the world, you still probably wouldn't be there all day just
Mhm.
because of the nature of them. um so yeah, I think people need to kind of alter their expectations a little bit and just know that that's the case for
Mhm.
most aquariums. And then people sometimes would say, well, why are they so expensive then? But from a sort of commercial aspect, attractions have to keep their prices in line with other similar attractions. Sea
Mhm.
Life obviously is a chain, so you've got to think there that the price is going to be set against all the other ones around the UK. And also, aquariums are very expensive to run. Like, I think
Yep.
people think, oh, it's just a few tanks of fish. You're just chucking some fish food in there. Nah, not at all. Like, the running costs for aquariums are hefty. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if some of them are actually probably more than zoos. So I think people sometimes don't quite think about that. But from former aquarium people, give the aquariums a break because there's a lot more. I think aquariums, there's always a lot more going on behind the scenes than what you're seeing necessarily on the visitor facing side of things. So yeah,
Mhm.
so just something to be aware of. But yeah, I think it's a good point. So what other bonus facts did you have?
Mhm. I think just to interrupt you slightly, I think it is interesting as well to mention that. Oh no, I was going to make a really good point. It was something to do with pricing and being nice. Oh, my point always when people, that's just what it is. My point always when people came to visit us was when you go to a zoo, you don't have to filter all of the air that every animal in that place breathes. But at
Yes.
an aquarium, you have to make sure that air is the water is filtered constantly. It's all at the right salt level, all at the right pH level, all at the right. So there's extra things that go on and extra complications, which kind of justify ticket price. That was the point I was going to make. And also, what justifies the ticket price was the final thing I was going to say. And the final positive thing, I think, ending on a high, is the Sea Life Trust. So, the
Mm,
Sea Life Trust is the organization that kind of, I think, takes some of the money from the sea life centers. They earn money to support a beluga whale sanctuary. They have a seal sanctuary as well in the UK. I can't remember where the beluga whale sanctuary is. It's gone out the top of my head, but obviously where belugas are, there is a sanctuary. And it's a really fantastic, I think, way to, and I think what all aquariums and zoos should be doing, funneling money into charities that support animals out in the wild.
Hmm.
Excellent work. They also work with reducing marine plastics, in increasing marine protected areas, all sorts of things. And so, yeah, that's a nice bonus that I think underlies everything there. And it's perhaps why they had the conservation messages with the seahorse kind of really drilled in, and with the turtle really drilled in. They support these projects. They want people to know about it. And I think there's no problem with that, because it is a fantastic, good cause that is underlying the whole organization. And so, if you're ever complaining about the ticket price or whatever, just remember that is the what's going on in the background, and that's what these things are supporting. And I
Mm.
think, yes, a fantastic, fantastic thing to
Yes.
end on. And I suppose, yeah, a nice way to end, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, my final question then, before we wrap up, because we've been talking for almost an hour. I love how with this
Mhm.
we were like, it's an aquarium, so it's smaller than a zoo, so we won't talk for as long. And also, like, only one of us was actually at it, so we definitely won't talk for as long. But we've still managed to talk for almost an hour. I think we're just going to have to accept that's always the way it's going to be. But my final question would be your 2 stars and a wish. What were they?
Okay, star number one,
Hmm.
Mantis Shrimp,
Okay.
because so cool, so bizarre, so strange. Loved it. Felt like it was looking into my soul. It was a spiritual experience. 10 out of 10. Loved it. Love a mantis shrimp. And I'd never seen it before, and I thought it was something unusual, which I thought was really cool. So that is
Mhm.
star number one. Um, Star number two, harder to pin down. I love the otters. I love the turtle story. I loved all of these things. I think if I was to make it more general, I would say I loved the conservation message that was woven throughout the aquarium. Would be my
Okay.
second
Good.
star, because yeah, I think sometimes you go to aquariums and that not isn't necessarily the focus. They tend to be smaller. Some of them are independent, and so don't support these things necessarily. This one certainly does. So it was nice to have that kind of woven in and throughout the experience. With April, with the seahorses, with the Sea Life Trust, you always felt like there was some purpose to these animals being here, and some educational bonus for it. And I really appreciate that. And I like walking away from somewhere knowing that I've had a good day, but also we've done a good thing as well. It's a nice
Yeah,
bonus, I would
absolutely.
say. So that's my second star.
Hmm. And finally,
Oh,
your
yeah.
wish.
I do want to say, but I never like saying bad things, because I think I'm going to be the one on this show who's always like, I didn't get to, it was too short. I would have loved it to be even longer because I enjoyed it so much. But I don't know. Trying to find a good way to frame things, my feedback. Overall, there was very little things I would change. I think it was just the trying to find my way around was sometimes not the most obvious, and it would be easy to miss things. So just be
Okay.
aware of that.
Hmm.
Obviously, you do have to go out through the tropical tunnel. You do have to, if there was a flow of people on a busy weekend, maybe it would have been okay. But just going on a quiet day, it wasn't entirely clear. So that maybe would be my wish, I suppose.
Okay.
Um, I would like it to be longer, but that's just me being greedy. But over so overall, I would say my one wish would be slightly better signage in terms of getting around, which I don't think is a bad thing.
No,
And
not at
also,
all.
second thing, I like the cinema idea on the middle floor. We didn't talk about it a lot because it was just
Oh
showing
yeah.
octonauts, which is not my vibe.
Well, I was going
Um,
to ask, like, why was there a reason why that was what was playing? And also, is that what's always playing, or do they switch it up between stuff for kids and stuff for adults? Like, what's
well,
the
it was
situation
the
there?
Octonauts Theatre, so I imagine it's always Octonauts, and they have some kind of sponsorship, which is fine.
Interesting.
Yes, but not for me particularly. So maybe if I
No.
had kids, it would be good, and it would be like the equivalent of like putting them on a ride while I go and get a coffee, like
Yeah.
whatever. Like it's like somewhere to sit them down and like chill them for 10 minutes, and it would add a lot of time, I suppose, to your visit if you were to sit down and watch a couple episodes of a cartoon. But yeah, not necessarily for me. So maybe
Yeah, like
one,
I think that
yeah,
is like
y-
it's a really valuable thing for families who've got kids, but then if
mhm,
you're there without any kids, that's a whole section of the building that's nothing to do with you. So
yeah,
almost it would make more sense if they sometimes had kids shows on, but then sometimes they were playing other things that would be of interest to
mhm,
adults, have some sort
yeah,
of viewing schedule just so that it changes it up a little bit. That might be
yeah.
an interesting way
Maybe
to go.
Yeah, especially because the films that they produced downstairs for the sea turtle and everything were such high quality. Maybe just
Mm,
screen those, or
hmm.
screen an equivalent where it's a set place for watching them. Because obviously
Yeah.
these films, as you go around, are on TV screens that you're kind of being pushed past a little bit as you walk around. If it was busy and there was a flow, you wouldn't have a chance to stop and look at them. Otherwise, you'd clog the hall. So
Yeah.
maybe put them in there as well. I don't know. Maybe they were playing and I just opened the door, saw a kids animated show and went, nope, and turned around too fast. But like, yeah, maybe something like that would be good. So I've maybe put two wishes in, but I could add more stars. I could add way more stars. So take that as it will. Too many more starfish uh, to my things.
We actually got
Oh
through that without too many fish puns, which I'm quite impressed with us for that because I really thought we were going to just be throwing them in left, right, and centre.
yeah, I'm trying to think of one, but I can't. Like,
No, no, we
there's
don't.
too
We
many.
don't need to think of one. We're done. We're done.
Yeah, I think I almost pushed my sister on over the edge when we got back in the car to drive away, and she she started playing from her Spotify, and I went, "Oh, Lana Del Stingray," and she was like, "That's not even funny." I'm like, "Well, it's not funny, but I'm trying. I'm trying." So yeah, we do love a pun, but yeah, I think we'll leave it there before because it is going to be that quality from now on. Otherwise, um, so yeah, those are kind of all of my thoughts. I guess the last thing we have to do is me. I wanted to leave a word because what is the one word to sum up my experience is something that I think we should like to do. And with Chester, the word was obviously bar because the
Mm.
bar was set exceptionally high.
Hmm.
And this is a very different experience. So it's hard to compare it to that. It's not bar. It's not, I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's a bar level for aquariums.
Hmm.
Not to be shady, it was very nice, but I don't know if for that, I didn't leave it in the kind of in awe like state that I left Chester. But that's obviously a very different place. So maybe I would say the one word for Loch Lomond sea life would be bonny. That's it. On the
Oh,
there
of
we go.
course.
On the bonny banks of Loch Lomond is a very bonny, maybe two bonnies. It's maybe bonny, maybe bonny aquarium, and I loved it very much. And yeah, that's kind of my one or two words for sea life. Loch
Lovely.
Lomond.
Well, thank you very much for telling me all about it. I've never been, but I mean, now I feel like I have been. I feel like I was on the journey with
I
you.
know my voice is going because I feel like I've just spoken at you for an hour, but
Well, to be
I hope you
fair,
enjoyed.
for anyone wondering, I have come down with a bit of a sore throat, which is why perhaps my energy is a bit lower than it would normally be. But it worked out quite well because it then meant that Jack could just do all the talking, and so it
Ramble.
fit for this episode. But
Yes.
yes, thank you for telling me all about it.
Yes, thank you very much. And I guess that leaves us now to wrap up. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has listened to all of the ReZOOs so far. The feedback has been so nice. The episodes have been doing so well. We love you all very, very much. We appreciate you all very, very much. My voice is now truly going. I'm not crying, I promise. I am just like breaking down my throat. Uh, but thank you all so, so much for that support. It's fantastic. I also want to say if you want to keep up to date with the show, you can follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We are at Pangolin Podcast, so find us on there. Also, make sure to subscribe to us on your podcast streaming service of choice because we will be doing more of these ReZOOs. We have many planned. We're going to spend far too much money traveling up and down the UK this year going to zoos. So make sure and tune in for that and subscribe so you don't miss out. And yes, I think that's everything I needed to say. Thank you again, Loch Lomond, for being fantastic, the national park and the aquarium. And yes, on that note, I suppose we can both say a very well thank you to you, Jodi, and also and thank you to all of you for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.